악마는 프라다를 입는다. 인턴, 레미제라블 등으로 알려진 배우 앤 해서웨이를 아시나요? 눈이 크고 순하게 처졌으며 환한 미소를 보여주는 큰입, 시원시원한 이목구비와 매우 흰 피부의 미녀 배우로 유명한 앤 해서웨이. 1999년 17세에 겟 리얼에서 첫 배우 활동을 시작했고 디즈니 가족 코미디 영화인 프린세스 다이어리에서 처음 비중 있는 역할을 맡았습니다. 그 후 수많은 할리우드 여배우들처럼 로맨틱 코미디에 묻혀 사라지는 것처럼 보였으나 영화 브로크백 마운틴에서 연기력을 인정받고 악마는 프라다를 입는다에서 미란다의 비서 앤디 삭스로 출연. 영화가 크게 흥행하면서 전 세계적으로 얼굴을 알리게 되었습니다. 출연작은 로맨틱 코미디가 많지만 다양한 역에 도전하며 넓은 연기폭을 가진 호평받는 배우가 되었습니다. 2012년 개봉한 다크나이트 라이즈의 셀리나 카일 역을 맡으며 초대형 블록버스터에 출연하고 그해 레미제라블에서 팡틴 역을 맡아 배역을 위해 11kg를 감량하고 삭발을 감행하는 투혼을 펼치며 대호평을 받았습니다. 그리고 이 팡틴 역으로 2013년 골든글로브 코미디 및 뮤지컬 부분 여우조연상과 아카데미 여우조연상 및 18회 크리틱스 초이스 시상식을 비롯해 제19회 미국 배우 조합상, 제33회 런던 비평가 협회상, 제66회 영국 아카데미 시상식 등 다수의 시상식에서 연기력을 인정받았습니다. 2004년부터 사업가 라파엘로 폴리에리와 4년간 교제하였으나 폴리에리가 사기 혐의로 체포되고 수백만 달러의 투자 음모에 가담한 죄로 4년 6개월 형을 선고받아 2008년에 4년간의 연애를 끝맺게 됩니다. 폴리에리와 이별 후 같은 해보석 디자이너인 애덤 셜먼과 교제. 2011년 약혼 발표, 2012년 9월에 비공개 결혼식을 치렀습니다. 현재는 두 아이의 엄마로 행복한 가정을 이루고 있습니다. 이런 멋진 그녀이지만 불과 몇 년 전까지만 해도 미국인이 가장 싫어하는 스타 10위 안에 항상 랭크되어 왔습니다. 엄청난 수의 안티가 있었고 미국 내에서 해서 헤이터라는 앤 해서웨이의 안티를 가리키는 신조어까지 나왔고 그녀의 안티들에 대한 기사까지 등장했습니다. 대표적인 이유로는 너무 털털한 척한다. 너무 잘난 척, 올바른 척한다. 노출증이 있는 것 같다. 자신을 낮추는 척을 하면서 남은 깐다. 등의 정확한 사례가 아닌 시기 질투가 섞인 감정적인 이유가 있었습니다. 그녀의 털털한 성격으로 인해 가식적인 행동들을 싫어하는 미국의 인간성에 크게 작용한 건데요. 2014년 인터스텔라 프리미어 시사회에서 아르헨티나 기자의 악수를 거절. 화난 기자는 자신의 SNS에 외국인과 악수하면 에볼라가 옮을까봐 악수를 안 하더라 라고 멘트를 남겨 전 세계적 비난을 받았으나 사실은 당시엔 해서웨이는 감기에 걸려 옮을까봐 누구와도 악수를 하지 않았었고 또한 2015년 인턴 개봉 후 한 식당에서 계란 후라이가 마음에 안 들어 음식을 3번이나 캔슬시켰고 마지막으로는 갑자기 삶을 달걀을 먹고 싶다며 4번이나 주문을 캔슬하는 기행을 보여 욕을 먹었지만 루머로 밝혀집니다. 그 당시 워낙 털털한 성격의 앤 해서웨이지만 파파라치들과 안티팬에게 치이게 되자 매우 힘들어했습니다. 하지만 현재는 안티가 많은 배우도 옛말이 되었고 이제는 앤 해서웨이가 출연한 토크쇼 영상 등에도 왜 앤을 싫어하는 사람이 많았던 건지 모르겠어 등의 댓글이 많이 달린다고 합니다. 너무 예쁜 여신 같은 배우 앤 해서웨이. 힘든 시간도 특유의 털털함과 긍정적인 모습으로 극복하는 모습을 보여주었고 우리에게 많은 배울 점을 보여주고 있습니다. 오늘은 앤 해서웨이의 힘듦을 극복하는 건강한 자존감을 갖는 방법과 청중의 기립박수를 받은 유엔 연설을 알아보겠습니다.
I really loved the article, and you talk in here about, for whatever reason, and it's a small group. Trust me, it's a small group, but they're loud, because I went through this, and voices that don't like you and say mean things really stick with you. For some reason, more than voices that say you're great. So, when that was going on after the Oscars, which you should have been celebrating, you won an Oscar, and then all of a sudden. Explain to how, because you accidentally Googled something and then this is what you found.
Yeah, and thank you for all the kind things you said in the asking of that question. Yeah, I'd gotten out of the habit of Googling myself because that's just a bad idea to ever do that. And I was trying to come up with my friends and I had an idea for Funny or Die, and we wanted to like do something on celebrity pregnancy rumors. So we just Googled pregnancy rumors, and then the story came up. And
What was the story?
the story, the title of it was "Why Does Everybody Hate Anne Hathaway?"
So I think, and you know, I know.
It's really okay.
No.
It has a happy ending.
I know.
Life continues.
Yes, but I know what that feels like. And I think when people write things like that or say things like that, it is cyberbullying. And so how did you deal with all that?
Well, I listened at first, and that I couldn't help it. You know, and you try to shut it off, and I couldn't. And then I realized why I couldn't was I hadn't learned to love myself yet. I hadn't gotten there. And if you don't love yourself, when someone else says horrible things to you, a part of you is always going to believe them.
Yep.
And so then it was like, okay, I don't want to believe these people. I don't want to agree with them on any level. I want to figure out who I am. I want to learn who I am, and I don't want to feel like I'm fragile every time I leave the house because I'm so dependent on what other people think about me. So I just took a step back, and as Matthew McConaughey, my co-star in Interstar, would say, I just kept living. And it's been a really cool journey. And I feel like I've arrived in a place where, maybe not every minute of every day, but way more than I used to. I have a tremendous amount of love and compassion for everyone else. And best of all, I have it for myself, which I never enjoyed before.
Good.
Thank you.
All right. You know, there's a great phrase that what you think of me is none of my business.
That is so, yes.
And you have to just, and there's nothing wrong with being fragile. I think it's a beautiful thing. I think I'm fragile. I'm extremely sensitive. I cry easily. I'm also a very strong woman, and I also believe in myself. But, people get their feelings hurt. But you can have all those things. You can be fragile. You can be sensitive. You can be strong. And but I think it's hurtful, and people need to know there are other people on the other side of those things.
오스카 수상을 하였음에도 죽고 싶다고 말을 했던 앤 해서웨이. 하지만 스스로 건강하게 단련하며 멘탈을 단련하며 건강한 자존감으로 성장시킨 앤 해서웨이입니다. 앤 해서웨이는 세계 여성의 날을 맞아 유엔에서 연설을 했습니다. 미국 뉴욕에서 열린 세계 여성의 날. 유엔 연설회장에서 그는 육아, 유급휴직 등 여성 인권에 대해 강조했습니다. 앤 해서웨이는 2016년부터 유엔 친선 대사로 활동 중이며 아이 엄마가 된 앤 해서웨이는 자신의 경험을 이야기하며 연설은 진행하였습니다. 여성이 가정과 가족에 머물러 있어야 한다는 고정관념은 아버지를 소외시키고 어머니에게 더 부담을 주는 일이라며 육아휴직은 일을 쉬는 것이 아니라 앞으로의 긍정적인 행동 양식을 수립하려는 것이라고 말했습니다. 이 영상은 앤 해서웨이의 유엔 연설입니다. 한번 보시죠.
When I was a very young person, I began my career as an actress. Whenever my mother wasn't free to drive me into Manhattan for auditions, I would take the train from suburban New Jersey and meet my father, who would have left his desk at the law office where he worked, and we would meet under the upper platform arrival and departure sign in Penn Station. We would then get on the subway together, and when we surfaced, he would ask me, "Which way is north?" I wasn't very good at finding north in the beginning, but I auditioned a fair amount, and so my dad kept asking me, "Which way is north?" Over time, I got better at finding it. I was struck by that memory yesterday while boarding the plane to come here, not just by how far my life has come since then, but by how meaningful that seemingly small lesson has been. When I was still a child, my father developed my sense of direction, and now, as an adult, I trust my ability to navigate space. My father helped give me the confidence to guide myself through the world. In late March last year, 2016, I became a parent for the first time. I remember the indescribable and, as I understand it, pretty universal experience of holding my week-old son and feeling my priorities change on a cellular level. I remember I experienced a shift in consciousness that gave me the ability to maintain my love of career and also cherish something else, someone else, so much, much more. Like so many parents, I wondered how I was going to balance my work with my new role as parent, and in that moment, I remember that the statistic for the U.S.'s policy on maternity leave flashed in my mind. American women are currently entitled to 12 weeks unpaid leave. American men are entitled to nothing. That information landed differently for me when 1 week after my son's birth, I could barely walk. That information landed differently when I was getting to know a human who was completely dependent on my husband and I for everything, when I was dependent on my husband for most things, and when we were relearning everything we thought we knew about our family and our relationship. It landed differently. Somehow, we and every American parent were expected to be back to normal in under 3 months. Without income? I remember thinking to myself, if the practical reality of pregnancy is another mouth to feed in your home, and America is a country where most people are living paycheck to paycheck, how does 12 weeks unpaid leave economically work? The truth is, for too many people, it doesn't. 1 in 4 American women go back to work 2 weeks after giving birth because they can't afford to take off any more time than that. That's 25% of American women. Equally disturbing, women who can afford to take a full 12 weeks often don't, because it'll mean incurring a motherhood penalty, meaning they will be perceived as less dedicated to their job and will be passed over for promotions and other career advancement. In my own household, my mother had to choose between a career and raising 3 children, a choice that left her unpaid and underappreciated as a homemaker, because there just wasn't support for both paths. The memory of being in the city with my dad is a particularly meaningful one, since he was the sole breadwinner in our house, and my brothers and my time with him was always limited by how much he had to work. And we were an incredibly privileged family. Our hardships were the stuff of other families' dreams. The deeper into the issue of paid parental leave I go, the clearer I see the connection between persisting barriers to women's full equality and empowerment and the need to redefine and in some cases destigmatize men's roles as caregivers. In other words, in order to liberate women, we need to liberate men. The assumption and common practice that women and girls look after the home and the family is a stubborn and very real stereotype that not only discriminates against women, but limits men's participation and connection in the family and society. These limitations have broad-ranging and significant effects for them and for the children. We know this. So why do we continue to undervalue fathers and overburden mothers? Data from the International Men and Gender Equality Survey shows that most fathers report that they would work less if it meant that they could spend more time with their children. And picking up on the thread that the Prime Minister mentioned, I'd like to ask, how many of us here today saw our dads enough growing up? How many of you dads here see your kids enough now? We need to help each other if we are going to grow.
앤 해서웨이의 유엔 연설을 보시고 어떤 생각이 드시나요? 앤 해서웨이는 남녀의 차별이 아닌, 남녀의 불평등이 아닌, 오직 여성만의 인권 신장이 아닌 남녀 모두 행복할 수 있는 방향을 위한 연설은 하였습니다. 세상은 남과 여성별로 나뉘는 게 아닌 남자와 여자가 만나 하나가 되어가며 서로 위하고 서로 싸우는 게 아닌 조화롭게 살아가야 합니다. 남자와 여자, 가족은 서로 자존심 싸움을 하며 갑을 관계를 정립하는 게 아닌 한 팀으로서 타인으로부터 서로를 보호하고 사회로부터 서로를 지켜가야 하는 존재입니다. 마지막으로 앤 해서웨이 유쾌한 인터뷰를 보며 영상을 끝마치도록 하겠습니다.
All right, let's talk about Ocean's 8. There's a great group of women in this movie. Did you know any of them before?
Yeah, I'd met a couple of them before, but it wasn't like I wasn't close with anybody. Now we're all close.
Yeah, and who are you closest with?
Now?
Yeah.
All of them. Well, we really are. It just was this huge love fest, which was great because there's that terrible rumor out there that women can't get along. And man, did we just murder that rumor. We just loved each other so much. And it was so special, you know, like the movie was always going to be significant because of what it is and who's in it. But it was really significant for me because it was my first movie after having my son. And, you know, I'm not somebody, one of the lucky things about being in this business for so long is that I've really kind of come to terms with the pressure that you get to look a certain way as an actress, and I don't beat myself up about any of that stuff anymore. But after I had my son, the weight was really slow to come off, and so I was a different size than I normally am, and the director told me, like, that's great. We have 8 women in this movie. We need to have as many body types up there as we can, which I was really relieved to hear. But I walked on the set and, like, you know, my weight's a little up, and I'm just aware of it. And I walk on the set and, like, I'm in my jeans and I've done my best and I'm gonna love myself no matter what. And Sandy Bullock just looks up and goes, "Looking good, Mama." It's like, oh, it made me feel amazing. And then Kate Blanchett's like, "Nice jeans, Hathaway." It's like, this is so great. And then Rihanna looks up and goes, "Damn, girl, you got an ass." And I, of course, was freaked out and loved it so much. And I was like, "Really?" And she goes, "You got an ass like me." And I can honestly say I've never had that experience on a film set before.
Wow. That's fantastic.
They were just so beautiful, and to be surrounded by that much love and understanding, it was just great.
Yeah, well, that's good to hear. And I really can't wait to see the film because it looks really, really good.
영상이 마음에 드셨다면 좋아요, 구독, 알림 설정 부탁드립니다. 꿀쟁이 섭이